What's up, y'all? It's Dr. Paul with a conservation video for Liberty Hill Comics, where I share my passion and over 40 years experience comic book collecting, investing, and conservation with you. Today we are continuing our video series in which we clean and press this Silver Age key comic book and prepare it for submission to CGC. We're going to continue our work dry cleaning the back cover, where the bulk of our dry cleaning needs to take place, as is typical for comic books because back cover ads usually have a lot of white or light background, and these show dirt, grime, and other foreign substances much more readily than heavily inked areas typical of the front cover. I'll show you how I use document cleaning powder while cleaning Silver Age comic books, so if that sounds like fun, stick around. In case you missed it, last episode we talked about showcase number 60, the first appearance of the Spectre in the Silver Age after a full 20 years absence from comic book publications. We talked about the historical significance of the Spectre, his prominence in the early Golden Age, his founding member status of the JSA, and the big bucks that his early cover appearances demand in the market. We also discussed the CGC census on this comic book and the fair market value before completing a walkthrough assessment of the condition of this comic book and developing our game plan. This comic book presents really well for a nearly 60-year-old comic, but had some notable flaws, including rusty staples, rust migration into the paper, a minor spine split, a few color-breaking spine ticks, as well as some minor color-breaking creasing, and some general soiling. We also noticed that this comic book had been dry cleaned before, and not very carefully. A previous cleaner had left eraser marks on the cover of the comic book that disrupted the gloss. We set as one of our goals to address the gloss loss on the cover. In episode 2, I dry cleaned the front cover of the comic book, cleaning up especially the white areas on the Spectre's body and the title in the trade dress, using cotton rounds and a few different erasers of different diameters to suit the areas we cleaned. We successfully removed some foreign substance from the cover and nearly 60 years of dirt buildup. Satisfied with the results, it was time to move on to the back cover. In episode 3, we dry cleaned the back cover where the bulk of the accumulated dirt, grime, and damage from the previously performed amateur dry cleaning resided. I also discussed the fact that conservators have found that clean and dry bare hands are generally safer than gloved hands for handling precious documents in old books, and the Library of Congress and conservation societies around the world recommend clean and dry hands over gloved hands for most conservation activities, which is why I do not use gloves for most comic book conservation work. I've created a playlist for this series, and if you've missed any of the previous episodes and want to watch them before watching today's episode, follow the link to the playlist. Because this back cover had those harsh eraser marks disrupting the gloss, I'm going to use the document cleaning powder this episode, which will help continue to make the back cover look uniform and normalize the gloss and set us up nicely for a final burnish to complete our dry cleaning before the press. This is the Lineco Bulk Document Cleaning Powder, and you see it has a dispenser on top similar to that you can find on spices, where there's some small perforated holes to get out the eraser crumbs directly, and then there's a larger slot for dispensing it more in bulk. Although this seems like the way to go if you're cost conscious because you're buying the eraser crumbs in bulk and therefore you're paying less per unit mass, the problem is they really don't dispense well from this can through the salt and pepper type holes, and if you bring them out through the slot, they come out in large clumps that don't roll very nicely. So I actually prefer these document cleaning pads where you pay a little bit more per unit mass for these for the document cleaning powder, what I usually call eraser crumbs. But look how much nicer it dispenses and how much more uniform the crumbs are in size because they have to pass through the pores of this porous cloth. So both of these are available from Amazon. You can find links to them in my video description or my Amazon Associates page. I prefer these document cleaning pads to the bulk, but maybe you'll buy the bulk and you'll figure out a better way to dispense them than I have. So I'd love feedback from anybody that has found a really successful way to dispense those crumbs from the canister and get them to come out uniform and useful. So the way this document cleaning powder works is you just roll the crumbs around. Again, I'm using clean, dry, bare hands. There's a very specific notation on using document cleaning powder and why you shouldn't use gloves for this use specifically, and that's because rolling these crumbs around with gloves on will actually build up static electricity. That static electricity can actually make pages jump up, levitate, and possibly move when you don't expect them to, which could lead to a tear or a rip, which obviously we don't want. So again, another reason why, in general, and of course there are always exceptions, in general we don't want to be using gloves for this kind of conservation work on comic books. So I just work this powder around. I've shown in some previous videos how much dirt this powder really picks up. You can dispense some of this powder onto a sheet of white paper and you'll see that it's just slightly off-white. Use it on a book and then collect it all and put it next to some unused document cleaning powder and you'll see just how dramatic the difference in color is. This document cleaning powder really does pick up a lot of surface contaminants that a cotton round doesn't, and it does it in a less abrasive way as well. It is, of course, more time consuming. I don't use it for all books. And cleanup is considerable. It takes quite a while for me to remove all these eraser crumbs from my table. These are a little bit smaller than those that roll off an eraser when you're using an eraser. And they tend to be just a little bit, I'll say, stickier in that they just cling to things a little bit more. Now I'm going to go ahead and hit both the front and the back with this document cleaning powder. And you can use it several times. Again, I would just check it against a fresh pile to see how much filth it's really picked up. So this hasn't picked up enough that I'm concerned with it sort of smearing that filth around. So I'm going to go ahead and use what I used on the back cover. I just have a little piece of blotter paper that I'm going to use as a scoop, and I'll put it on the front cover here as well. I don't think the front cover has nearly as much grime or contaminants on it to remove, so this seems like a fine use of it, and maybe it would have been smarter to start here because it would be less to transfer to the back cover, but I was on the back cover and I was focused on it, so that's where I started. Now this document cleaning powder is advertised as non-abrasive, and I think generally it is very non-abrasive. It has a really sort of soft feel to it. However, I've found that it sets up the cover, whether it imparts just a little bit of lubricant or material to the cover, I'm not sure. Maybe there are even micro granules of the document cleaning powder left behind. I'm not sure. But for whatever the reason, I found that it sets the cover up really nicely for a final polish. And it may just be that it's the removal of all those contaminants that does that job for us. But whatever the reason, and this is why I decided to use the document cleaning powder on this particular book, it seems to set the cover up for a really nice final burnish and gloss restoration with a regular cotton round. So you'll note that I dispensed the crumbs from the bag, and then I did not use the bag to roll around on the book. That is, in fact, something I see a fair number of people do. It's not the way this bag is intended to be used. If you do that, what's going to happen is the bag will actually pick up a lot of dirt. If you watch videos of other people doing that, the bags are basically filthy. And then you take the bag and you're rolling that filth around on your book. So obviously I don't want that. You'll note what I do is I use my fingers as the product is intended to just roll the document cleaning powder around. And then when I'm done, I'll just give it a brush with a cotton round to remove. And of course, there's some cleaning action that's happening when I'm doing that while I'm removing those eraser crumbs. And then I'll use a brush to remove the rest. This is a process you have to repeat several times, really, to get rid of all these eraser crumbs because, like I said, they're tiny and they tend to be kind of clingy. They're very soft. They're non-abrasive. They will stay on the book. So you're going to have to repeat this process 3 or 4 times to get the book completely cleaned. And you're going to have to even clean your cleaning materials. So you've got to knock your brush off and clean your brush in between each as well. It is time consuming. I think on this particular book it was worth it, but you see why I don't use them on every book, because if it's not indicated because you don't really need the removal of some of those surface contaminants because you just have a cleaner book, or you don't have a book that has the disrupted gloss, it's probably not necessary, and it's probably not value add because, again, it takes so much time to clean. And if you leave even one of these eraser crumbs on the book before your final press, that crumb is going to be indented into the cover. It's going to be something you need to remove and then repress the book. So it can be something, again, that is detrimental. Definitely takes some extra care and time to use this document cleaning powder. But I think on this particular book, it's worth it. Let's have a sneak peek of the back cover stills. On the left here is before, on the right is after. You can see it's subtle, but the book is definitely cleaner, brighter. The white areas and the bright areas are just more uniform. So we definitely improved this book. We'll wrap this video up here, and next episode we'll summarize all the work done on this book and show you the final before and after images of the entire book after the press. This book is now off at CGC, so when we get it back we'll have one more final upload after that one with the grading results. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed the video and will join me for the future episodes. If you did enjoy the video, please give it a thumbs up, leave me a comment, and of course subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And if you made it this far, then you're a true fan of this sort of content, and I want to call your attention to the 2024 YouTube Comic Book Community Awards. Creating content for YouTube is a labor of love, and a way for us to connect with others that share our passion. The awards recognize the incredible amount of work that goes into creating content for YouTube and bringing it to you viewers. I'm humbled and filled with gratitude to have been recognized this year as a finalist, and I'm thrilled to be listed among these other fine channels. Please take a minute and go vote for one of us. Everyone here is doing it for the love of the community. I've put a link in the description to make it easy for you to cast your vote. And if you want more comic book conservation content, check out the live show, which airs Sunday evenings at 8:35 Eastern, with my co-hosts Captain Larry of Flying L Comics and Phil of Phantom Restoration. Until next time, take care of one another.